Welcome back to our auditing tutorial series for CPALE. In this video, we'll talk about a crucial but often underestimated part of an auditor's responsibilities, the communication. So specifically, how auditors communicate findings and insights with management and those charged with governance. So by the end of this session, you should understand the nature and scope of auditor communications, what should be discussed, with whom, and how these communications should be documented. Effective communication helps build trust. It ensures that stakeholders are aware of critical audit findings and can take informed actions. It's also a requirement under Philippine standards on auditing 260 and 265. Okay, so why communicate with management and governance? So first, it promotes transparency and accountability, provide insight into audit findings, support governance in overseeing financial reporting, and meet professional and ethical standards. So what are the key requirements of PSA 260? So it requires the auditors to communicate key aspects of the audit to those charged with governance. So that includes auditors' responsibilities, scope and timing of the audit, significant findings, independence, and objectivity. How about the PSA 265, the internal control deficiencies? All right, that includes significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, required written communication. So this ensures risks are addressed timely. All right, it's important also to distinguish between management and governance. Governance oversees the strategic direction and integrity of financial reporting, while management handles daily operations. So governance is here, and management is actually here. So governance, you have the policymakers, the board of directors, the audit committee, while here in the lower level, you have the management like the CEO. They are the ones driving the day-to-day operations. They are the one executing the policies. You have the CFOs, controllers, yan. Operations managers. So yun yung part ng under ng management, right? So key audit matters to communicate. So we know that auditors must share important areas of focus, findings, and any adjustments made or not made by the management, especially if they impact the fairness of the financial statements. So what are those key audit matters? First, the auditor responsibilities under GAS or PSA or GAP. Sorry, not GAP, GAS. Second is the planned scope and timing. The next one is significant findings and judgments, audit adjustments and unrecorded misstatements, and the auditor's independence. All right, how about the timing and format? So while some updates can be given verbally, critical findings like internal control issues must be documented in writing, right? So because it serves as the part of the audit evidence. So it should be timely. Communication should be timely. As I mentioned to you, it can be oral or written, but of course, written is always preferable. And then there should be like a formal letter for deficiencies as required by PSA 265. Documentation in audit files. So all communications, especially written ones, must be documented in the audit working papers, no? So if you look at the picture, in my time as an auditor, literally these are the audit working files. Right? It helps justify audit conclusions and support accountability. So what should you put in the documentation of audit files or the working paper files? So of course, the copies of communication letters, records of meetings with the governance, and management representations. Common audit communication issues or the pitfalls to avoid. First, late communication, inadequate documentation, overly technical language, and failing to report significant issues. So if it's not clear, it's not timely, so that means there's an issue. So those are the pitfalls that we need to avoid, no? It's they said nga, no, it's better to always over communicate rather than less communicate. All right, it's better to communicate things earlier rather than late. Okay, and of course, documentation. You put as much as documentation as possible. And some people are really good in grammars, in languages, technical descriptions, but too much of this, of course, is not good anymore. So just use the common language, common English, common words. Okay. So, to summarize, effective communication with management and governance is not just a good practice, it's a professional obligation. So it reinforces audit quality and accountability. So we talk about communicate key issues clearly and timely. So we follow PSA 260 and 265 standards, address internal control issues in writing, and ensure documentation is appropriate. All right, now let's go to CPALE type exam questions. So if you're ready, let's start. Okay, for question number 1, what standard requires communication with those charged with governance? A is PSA 230, B PSA 265, C PSA 260, and D PSA 300. You may pause the video to think. Okay, the correct answer is letter C, PSA 260. So PSA 260 covers the auditor's communication with those charged with governance. Okay, let's go to question number 2. Which is required to be in writing under PSA 265? A, audit fees, B, management letter, C, internal control deficiencies, and D, independence declaration. So you may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, internal control deficiencies. So PSA 265 mandates written communication of significant internal control deficiencies. All right, question number 3. Those charged with governance typically include A, internal audit staff, B, accounting clerks, C, board of directors, and D, bookkeepers. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, board of directors. So the governance, as I mentioned to you, the governance includes oversight bodies, the policymakers, like the board of directors and audit committees. So below the governance committee is the management. Okay, let's go to question number 4. When should the auditor communicate with governance? A, after the audit report. B, during the tax season. C, timely and throughout the audit. And D, only when requested. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, timely. Always remember the word timely, and all throughout the audit, there are series of communications to the with regards to the governance. No? So communication should be timely and occur throughout the audit process. Question number 5. Which is not a required communication under PSA 260? A, auditor's responsibility. B, planned audit scope. C, tax return details. And D, independence threats. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, tax return details. So tax return matters are outside the scope of audit. So communication under PSA 260. Tax return details are not covered by by audit, no. These are done by either the internal tax team or you have an outside tax consultants. Okay, let's go to question number 6. An example of significant deficiency is letter A, a typo in the invoice. B, missing signature on a form. C, lack of segregation of duties. And D, late submission of BIR forms. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, lack of segregation of duties. It is a common and serious internal control weakness. Okay. Now let's go to question number 7. Communication with governance enhances A. Audit costs, B. Auditor independence, C. Transparency and accountability, and D. Employee morale. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, transparency and accountability. So transparency and accountability it builds transparency and helps governance oversee the financial reporting effectively. Okay, now let's go to question number 8. Okay. If management refuses to correct a material misstatement, the auditor must A. Ignore it, B. Report it to governance, C. Sign the report anyway, and D. Change materiality. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter D. Report it to governance. So if management refuses to correct, the auditor must escalate the matter to the governance. Let's go to question number 9. Excuse me. Documentation of communication is important because it replaces audit procedures. B, it increases firm revenue. C, it provides audit evidence. And D, it is not actually required. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, it provides audit evidence. So proper documentation supports audit conclusions and compliance. Okay, now let's go to question number 10. Communication with governance is aimed at A, minimizing taxes, B, selling audit software, C, improving audit quality and oversight, and D, avoiding SEC penalties. You may pause the video to think. The correct answer is letter C, improving audit quality and oversight. So the purpose is to improve transparency, oversight, and the overall audit process. Okay, that wraps up our session on communicating with management and governance. So remember, an audit it's not just about ticking boxes. It's about meaningful, professional communication. So don't forget, please, all of that when you become an auditor or even before your CPALE exam. All right, if you like our video tutorial, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more video tutorials. Thank you for watching.